how will they upskill, how will they grow in this world. And so it's really important to put the right upskilling frameworks around them, to make sure that they have the right tooling, the right mentoring around them as they're using these tools in the right way. And just in general, right, like I mentioned this term that AI is infrastructure. It's a tool that you mentioned as well. It is going to be used as a tool in your daily workflows, right? So when we are interviewing, for example, we actually see in some of the interviews how you're using AI to do critical thinking, right? To up level your systems design, to up level your critical thinking. How do you actually use it to further those skills versus replace those skills, right? And what we're also seeing is actually, the AI is not a skill that's useful on its own. The domain skill and AI together is what's really, really helpful, right? So being a computer scientist and also learning about AI is useful. Being a major in finance and learning AI is useful. So yeah, and then I'll hand it over to Matthew. Yeah.
Thank you, Mustafa, and thank you for the question. So these questions struck me because it really describes very well what is a paradox, the paradox of the contemporary society, where we give you something to learn in a certain way, but we take that away when you have to implement the result or the solution. So we teach you by using AI, but then we assess you without using AI. So we give you a book, but then we take it away when you have to explain what you have studied on. We give you a pen, but then we ask you to write without a pen. We give you a piece of paper, but then we take it away. So the ethical question behind that is, how do you address this paradox by enabling you to use purposely with questions behind the tools that we're giving you? So I feel that there is an opportunity to understand also from the student perspective to what extent AI is helping them to train how they question processes and also how they can use it in an exam, for example, but by declaring, by stating, by judging, by assessing how they use it and what they use it for. So I'll give you a very brief example, a story. One of my Coursera alumni from October reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, Matteo, that course was opening my eyes onto what I can do next. This person is a guy that is around 35 years old, and he is a sixth form school teacher in the UK. And he asked me to have a little call with me. I said, fine, send me an email. We had 15 minutes call, and he asked me, I now understand what I can do, but I don't know what to do. So you understand what you can do, but you don't know what to do. Okay, let's have a chat. So you are a school teacher, and you want to bring AI to school in the UK. What can you do? Well, I would like to do this, this, and that, but we don't have resources. And then I said, how would you feel empowered to do something to change the way people use AI into your school? And he spent a couple of minutes there, and he answered me with, well, we can use Google, we can use Microsoft, we can use this and that. I said, okay, but what is really that you can change as an agent for change in your school? And then he said to me, well, we can actually open a panel for discussion around AI at my school, among teachers and among kids, Oh, cool. And what you can do next? Well, actually, I can be the starter, I can be the president, or, the person that starts this panel and bring those educators together to talk about how do we bring AI to kids here. And so the answer was actually in his brain already, but the moment we started to brainstorm together, because he had a chance to follow this course, was opening his eyes. Hey, actually, you know what? I don't need someone else to start that. I can start it. And he can be the agent of change. So coming back to your question, we are teaching how to use ethically AI from the foundations, but just to make sure that people can have this philosophy of curiosity and this way of questioning what they do and how they do it by themselves. And if they have a chat with me, great, but they can have a chat with billions of people around the world that can have the same mindset.
Okay. We have time for 2 quick questions. There's a gentleman at the back over there. very quickly introduce yourself. And
good morning. Thank you very much. My name's AJ. I lead digital health and data science for an NGO that's working to incorporate AI into how faculty for medical and nursing education actually use it to teach their students. But that's where some of the paradoxes arise for us, right? One of the questions that we got from a teacher that we're trying to work with now is to say that, well, the expectation is now for me to do more, right? You'll make my life more frantic, more larger in scope, and I'm not sure I want to go there, right? I'm happy teaching my students the way that I'm teaching. Now, while at that point of time, we kind of discounted that question to saying that that is one, but we just read a commentary by Professor Ranganathan at HBR as well, which is exactly the same thing, as to how AI is making lives of people more frantic, and how it's really expanding the scope and dimensions of work that they're doing. I'm an AI evangelist. I want to use AI for almost everything that we do. But have you noticed some of this in your dealings, and how do you really counter that narrative?
Sanjay, you talked about AI reducing the workload, so I think maybe you should take this one.
Now, have we heard that before? The answer is yes. But the context of that is also unwillingness to change. We have seen a lot of times people, and this has happened to us. I'm not saying anybody, we don't want to learn new things. Change is not something that comes naturally to us as humans. So it is about, because I've been doing something a specific way, I want to continue doing it a specific way. Why should I, after years of my knowledge that I have as a professor, and why do I want to change? You tell a 25-year-old kid that he or she would be very willing, but a 45, 50-year-old professor may be a little more close to that change process. So it's actually because of that. I've seen the other way around. I've met a professor at IIT Tirupati. They are today using Notebook LM to teach kids how to do research in the first class of research. Right? So that's, I think, what I would rather want these professors and teachers to start thinking, that it would take time away from a lot of mundane things that you do and give you time back to spend with students. And let's be honest, it's not easy. And that's why people don't like to do the difficult things. So I think it's a combination of willingness to learn something new and doing the difficult thing, which is spending time answering those difficult questions that kids have. And let's be honest, kids have very difficult questions today. So yeah, that's the way, that's what we have heard and been able to manage that discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're supposed to clean out the room now. Thank you for everybody who showed up on a Monday morning. Thank you for our panelists who came from all over the world to share their views here. We all need to do a lot of change management at our organizations. Please enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you.
We will now be handing over mementos to our esteemed speakers. Many thanks to the Coursera team for a fantastic session. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated for our next session in the same room. The speaker lounge is at MR13, and you may check the agenda for any other sessions that you might be interested in. You can also use our mobile app to figure out your next port of call. Thank you so much for joining us.
आपको आ रही है बात? नहीं आ रही। वो भी बोल रहे थोड़ा सा।
पहले भी इसमें इशू आया था, मैं देख रहा हूँ इनके साउंड नहीं आ रही, फिर मैंने रीसेंड किया तो आ गया था। अब मुझे गुस्सा हो रहा है, मैं क्या करूँ?
Thank you everyone.
अरे इसका मैं तो ऐसे सुना कि साउंड आ रहा है, लिंक तो दो, ऑडियो कहाँ है? तुमने भी लिंक ये फीड कहाँ जा रहा है?
You are your main announcements on the Unifying AI saying almost a million plus people. How are you doing about it?
हेलो,
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Mada. And thanks for everyone in the audience for being here, defying all the Delhi traffic early in the morning. But to set it right at an outset, right, the bold move that we are making in Telangana is to unify all AI innovation happening across the state under a unified entity called ICOM. So if you look at what's happening in the world of AI, the technology is like a runaway train. It's in fact a runaway train, right? And two, it has become a sovereign matter, right? It's a national security matter. So in that context, you cannot have fragmented, splintered initiatives happening where for you to get that massive momentum and impact that you want to deliver. So in Telangana, we have unified all existing AI initiatives and innovation initiatives under a new autonomous body called ICOM that we launched at Davos last month. And that is going to drive integrated innovation across skilling to startup acceleration to startup financing to co-creation and co-innovation with industry to co-research with leading institutions across the world. And the idea is to make Telangana a top 20 AI innovation hub and an open innovation ecosystem in collaboration with the rest of the world.
Vani, can I bring you in? Look, as an investor, you deal with startups daily, right? And you have also worked with large-scale organizations. How do you see the AI disruption? Are we ready for what's coming ahead?
I think we are always ready and we are never ready because change is constant. So I think it's just about being prepared. But your question has two parts to it. One is when organizations are at scale, what do you need to do to be ready? And when entrepreneurs want to create, now what do they need to do differently, right? So, tools, and as a user, India, I think, is making a lot of progress and leaps. This is number 2 in terms of number of users from OpenAI, ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. So from AI usability and AI learning, we are making a lot of progress. And that's, of course, you can put that stacked against a population scale, but at least awareness is growing. But that's different from how do you build AI native organizations, which I think is always difficult from incumbent transformation. If I just take an anecdotal example, uh, in a small firm like us, most venture firms, we are an early stage venture capital firm, relatively are 20, 30 people, so fairly small scale organization. But what used to take 10 analysts from research, tracking, today probably takes 2 analysts. And maybe there is a future where it requires no analysts. I don't know that, but today at least we still need 2 analysts, right? So the question is, from an employability, perhaps those analysts, and most of the time, they are far ahead of somebody like me in leading the organization into what should we be doing and so on and so forth. So that's where the employability and the skills of the fast changing landscape of tools that are emerging that deliver operational efficiency at the organizational level, is changing. But as an entrepreneur, I think there are 2 things. One is, can you conceive a AI native organization first of all? So can you do to solve whatever problem you're solving faster, quicker, cheaper? Although if you look at the venture capital that's going in, that doesn't feel like that sometimes, right? Because the investments are not going down, the investments are going up into AI founders. But the second thing is, what do founders need to do today differently? The tools make it so much easier today from developing a product. So that's not an edge. That used to be an edge maybe before, but today there are, you could do a MVP in a week if you're using tools to take your idea and to create some kind of a viable product. So the viable product is no longer about building feature, but the value proposition that has compressed from time is, can you show how you're actually creating cost efficiency, or where is it that you're doing the organizational transformation, right? And maybe we'll pause there and we can talk more about that.
Aparna, let me ask you, Vani spoke about startups and AI native businesses. You're part of Startup Group, the biggest conglomerate in India, dealing with so many businesses. You have the digital mandate there. What is AI, what does AI mean for such a large organization to transform? What is keeping you up? What challenges do you foresee?
Thanks for having me, and we are the right opposite of what Rani said. We're nowhere close to being a small organization, but the aspiration is same. We do believe that AI is a transformative force which is going to be impacting all our businesses. And therefore, what does it mean in terms of scaling and reskilling people at this scale? The way we are looking at that is, how can we have specialized programs for senior leadership so that you understand the art of possible, you know where disruption is going to be coming from. We believe that critical for our success will be building a cadre of mid-level business managers. We call them AI champions. We often use the term reimagination when it comes to AI, but we don't really tell people how to reimagine and what does it look like to be reimagining. So for us, this middle management level of business is critical from a reimagination perspective. The third one is the technical talent itself. How can you keep them updated always? And in a large organization where the change is the only constant. And I think today for us the biggest challenge is the tech is changing so rapidly. So by the time you finish one round of skilling with your folks, the tech has already moved forward. So how do you always keep ahead and make sure that you're playing the catch-up game right? That's the biggest challenge.
So with that, let me pass it on to you. Now, Aparna spoke about the challenge of keeping pace with what is coming. Right? Now you belong to an organization which is one of the disruptors here. You also run a lot of scaling initiatives as part of Google. How do you work with the organizations of helping them come up the curve? Because technology is as good as the organizations adopting it, and will people actually get reskilled it's going to be hard to scale.
अब मेरा
मेरा
WhatsApp चल रहा है, फिर भी कह रहे हैं कि आपका WhatsApp नहीं चल रहा
spoke about how AI adoption in India is going through the roof. I think the room is overflowing. It kind of shows the energy and optimism that India has for the goodness that AI can bring to India. So at Google, we are deeply committed to accelerate this pace of AI learning and skilling in India. The idea is to leverage this optimism, work with the ecosystem partners like people on this panel and beyond, and really convert this energy, this optimism in a purely AI-ready workforce, which is not only solving the problems of today, but also planning for future. Now, some of the learnings that we have had so far, first and foremost, if we want to make a meaningful difference for a country of our size, if you want to make a meaningful difference for a scale and size of India, the first and the foremost thing for all of us to collectively solve for is to reduce the entry barrier. Because if we are thinking about solutions for, say, people in this room, people like us, students in Delhi, Calcutta, Mumbai, then we are just addressing the tip of the iceberg. It has to talk to students, entrepreneurs, right, from, say, Gwalior to another end of the country, right? So reducing the entry barrier will be the first one that I will talk about. The second thing that we have learned is that just making learning about understanding a concept is not good enough. Aparna spoke about the pace and how difficult it is for anybody, whether it's you or us, to play the catch-up game. So just understanding a concept is not good enough. The learning has to talk to real-world solution, real-world application. So bridging that gap becomes extremely important in concept as well as what we are solving for. This is something that we have learned from our startup ecosystem. We have Google Startup School. Vani and I have done sessions there. And we've learned that since inception, there have been more than 30,000 participants. Almost 50% comes from tier 3 cities, so covering almost 700 cities. And when we talk about our accelerated program, which is for, say, a growth stage startup, again, we have seen these companies leveraging the technology, and the survival rate is more than 96%. So when these startups survive and thrive using the technology, solving for real good problems, innovation and employment creation go hand in hand, and that's very critical for a country like ours. So again, the alumni of our accelerators have already created about 26,000 jobs in India so far. The third way that we have, and many other organizations in partnership with the ecosystem are addressing, is really how do you make it a multiplier effect. So when it comes to AI skilling, how are we focusing on the trainer? So there's a Gemini Academy. I don't know if people in the audience have heard about it. If not, please do look at it. Deeply focuses on trainers. We have trained more than 1 million educators, trainers, professors who are further going and ensuring a multiplier effect. And then I would say that, deep partnerships, and I have Aparna from Tata sitting next to me. We have partnered in the past on an initiative called Internet Sathi, which was about digital education, and deep partnerships to acquire reach scale is absolutely critical. We also do a lot of work through google.org, which is our philanthropic arm, which is through funding, through technology, by providing people, and many education-related initiatives are being sponsored and pushed through these initiatives.
Thank you. Professor Rai, let me bring it to you. This was very large organization, hyperscaler view. Now you are working with many countries in Africa, with 50 plus countries, each with different contexts, languages. Rom also referred to people who have access in large cities versus people who do not. We are dealing with a different animal in Africa and some parts of India and rest of the global south, right? So how do you see scaling initiative being done at scale? Is the kind of initiatives which we are talking about, which is very global west led or global north led, are those enough? What do we need for Africa and India?
Thank you very much, Chair. Before I start, let me thank JICA and BCG for organizing this, and also for inviting me to the panel as well. It's glad to be here and good to see the enthusiasts on AI. Now, before I continue, allow me to ask the public three questions. One is obvious. Others may not be obvious. On that, I'll continue with my presentation. If you know Africa, please raise your hand. Okay, everybody. I said that's obvious. Everybody knows where Africa is. Do you know, if you know East African community, raise your hand. So see, very few people know East African. That's a bit harder question. The hardest is, if you know the Inter-University Council for East Africa, raise your hand. Okay, only one person, two people. So I'm the acting executive secretary of the Inter-University Council for East Africa. Our work is based on East African community. East African community is a regional economic bloc, our community in East Africa, which is basically composed of 8 countries. This is Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Somalia. Their main objective is to integrate is a country into a political federation. Now, Inter-University Council for East Africa is the institution of East African community in charge of higher education. Its main objective of establishment is to use higher education as a platform towards regional integration through harmonizing education systems that are very diverse among these partner states. So we do that through policy advocacy, academic mobility, capacity building, convening and networking, and through projects and programs. Our major strength is convening policymakers and academic leaders, as well as students. We are an intergovernmental organization. At the same time, we are a member-based institution. All higher education institutions in the East African community are eligible to be members of the Inter-University Council for East Africa. So we advise partner states on all matters related to higher education. And we look at the trend in higher education, for which at the moment is AI. In June 2023, we held our first annual conference on the theme, the age of higher education in the age of AI and data science. This is June 2023. Remember, AI became so prominent by the launch of ChatGPT. When was it? November 2022. So just about 6-7 months. We both saying we are probably the first international regional organization to hold a conference on AI in higher education. Through that, policymakers, university leaders reflected on the impact of higher education, of AI and data science in higher education. With that, we realized we had a lot of challenges, and I think they've mentioned here. One is skills gap, lack of expertise in teaching, but also lack of awareness for teachers of AI. At that time, students were really widespread using AI tools, but teachers were not aware of it. We didn't know how to use it, as well as lack of infrastructure and so on and so forth. So where we are placed, we came up with a number of interventions into particularly building workforce ready, future ready skills on AI. With this, there's a number of interventions that we held, and I think before I continue explaining what we are doing, all this has been largely due to the partnership with different partners around the world who've been supporting us to do it. One is we are training teachers on the use of AI in teaching and learning in partnership with UNESCO. And we train all our teachers. The idea is to train all our teachers in the member universities. We start with cohort 1, cohort 2, coming with basic phase 1, foundational skills for teaching and learning, but also phase 2 is a bit more advanced, like developing chatbots and so on and so forth. The other one is establishing a federated center of excellence on AI, particularly building a network of universities, one node from each of these partner states in certain communities that build a network whereby they collaborate in co-creating curricula and building research collaborations among themselves, as well as yielding to innovation ecosystem through partnering with industry and as well as the private sector, as well as the public with the university and academia. Those are just two of the activities. There are more, but I think you'll come back to me and I'll explain. Now, these are homegrown initiatives. Some of them I'll come up with other activities that we are doing where we partner. It's a Western led initiative. They are all useful. They are both useful. But I think the most important thing is to co-create some of these initiatives with the locals. Not only adopting or adapt to every year in somewhere. And this is what we do with our experts in the region from different geographies.
Roma, maybe I'll come back to you on this. Professor Wright spoke about the local initiatives, the importance of localization. How are you as Google, an organization which is driving skilling initiatives across the world, building this local context?
That's a very important question, right? As my fellow panelists just mentioned, that it's been almost 3 years that we are, in fact, AI has been around for longer, but I guess generative AI and the acceleration happened in the last 1,000 days plus 3 years. And we reached a stage that where if we have to solve for India, and I've mentioned the scale and the size, isolated projects will not help. So for me, or for Google, as I represent Google, the first and the most important thing is aligning to a common vision of the country, right? So when the government, through India AI mission, how many of you have heard about India AI mission? So yeah, almost everyone, right? And we are here for the India AI Impact Summit. So it's really coming together of the vision for the country, and when the government plays as a catalyst, then the academia, the industry can really come together to bridge the gap. So for me, the most important thing is aligning to a common vision, which is happening as we speak. I'll speak about Google initiatives. Even like if I spoke about Google for Startup, we work closely with me, follow the framework that has been shared through the India AI mission, and that's why the impact is much larger. We are able to work with people who or partner with organizations who are thinking alike, and we can join hands to solve. One AI is one such initiative that they really focused on a very simple thing, which is about making people across India get more comfortable in speaking in English. Now, if you think about it, it is an important aspect of being job ready. It's an important skill for a market like India, right? So that's one. The second thing that I feel is very, very important is to solve in India, for India, understanding the local context. And again here, I'm inspired by the government's mission. There are these COEs that have been created, Center of Excellence, 4 Center of Excellence. We partner closely across the centers, specifically the education one in partnership with IIT Madras. What it does is that it gives industry opportunity to invest in local research. So unless and until we have the local context and we have local researchers solving for the local context, you cannot solve for a country of our size and scale. So that becomes extremely important. And the third thing, which I also spoke about, skilling, and I think works across pillars of human capital, is again bridging the gap between understanding concepts, understanding AI in theory, and bridging the gap to really making it application-oriented solving. And again, industry has a big role to play to bring upfront what are the challenges that need to be solved, and then work backwards, through research, through innovation towards it. Very, very important that while we are innovating in India, we are solving for employment in India, and everything is going hand in hand. So those are some of the things. Yeah.
Jay, I'll come to you. You have been, your initiative, Brave, largely focusing on bridging the gap between, say, research and commercialization, right? Like through the innovation hubs that you run. Are you seeing enough? Like, how do you see startups coming off the curve in terms of localizing and building for the market as to referring to?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but nevertheless, I'll give you my perspective. Firstly, it's fantastic to see so many people, right? I did not expect the room to be as packed as it is today. So hats off to all of you. Less to do with the stellarness of the audience and the panel here. And thanks for having me, right? Um, if I were to take a view and break it down in the so-called value chain of skilling vis-a-vis AI, I think three things stand out, and this is purely my personal view. I'll try to marry it to this program that we run, which is called Brave in Japan. Very successful. The first part of the value chain is, there's a lot of talk about jobs being displaced. If you really double click on that and see, take a first principles view, I don't think there exists any job today that involves one task. Right? Every single job that all of us have hopefully has a multitude of tasks. So when jobs get replaced, and it will, it's not that your occupation goes away, it's the tasks that will go away. So for me, the first part of figuring out how you can play ball with AI is to figure out what is the one task that you're good at. And I'll give an example. Humans are exceptionally good at taking decisions at the point of indecisiveness. Leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs are exceptionally good at taking decisions when there lies a platitude of indecisiveness in front of them. And number two, they can be held accountable. If shit hits the roof, the leader is accountable. And I think that's what humans are good at. So there are components in the value chain where the tasks that humans embrace and do well, you have to now play ball with AI and think of how AI in an agentic mode or a co-pilot mode or through regressive learning becomes part of your playbook. I think that's part of the answer, and that's how I think Brain has also evolved. The second part of the value chain is, Ronnie alluded to this. Unfortunately, we live in a world where the arbitrage of labor in capital markets is going down and the value of capital is going up, which means that if you are in a country or an ecosystem with insane amounts of talent, it may not actually matter as much as it did a decade ago. What matters is capital. I think Roman mentioned it. I think what India offers specifically is two beautiful things. One is diversity of data, right? So if you look at diversity of data and do a mathematical Gaussian model, you get this bell curve where the area of the bell curve is beautifully spread out. I don't think any other country offers it. The second part that India offers, I think, is the fact that we've led the way by postulating public goods, right, as a piece of infrastructure. I think India can lead the way, not by building another LLM. Actually, I'll be happy if it does, but I think we're better off building public goods as an infrastructure, and I think initiatives like Funds is probably a leading candidate of that. And I'll end on a negative note, not that I want to, but what this leads to, right, skilling and scaling of AI, is going to be a bit of a unipolar world where distribution of wealth is going to be concentrated. Right? It's going to be in the hands of a few tech companies. It's going to be in the hands of a few countries. I think that's what you've got to watch out for as a populace.
Gee, that's a scary message you left, ended the note with. And let me go to funny for this. Like, we are dealing with a much large population here. We've all spoken about India's demographic advantage, and that advantage only works if we can move talent in line with where the technology is headed. The gap between haves and have-nots, which Jay was also referring to, is going to be crucial. Now you have one large-scale initiatives in Telangana, but you're also leading innovation hub. How do you connect the dots? Like, how do we bridge this gap and make sure that whatever we are doing is actually inclusive?
I think great insights from the rest of my panelists, and I've been keenly hearing. We talked about how access is important for a country like India. There is also the element of richness of the kind of content and training that we want to deliver. There is also an aspect of aligning that with employability or the industry and so on and so forth. But there is one thing I think I haven't heard that much is the focus on outcomes. It's very, very, very important, especially in skilling. You begin with the end in mind. Unfortunately, today, most of the time, the end seems to be that certificate that I'm chasing or that diploma that I'm chasing, as opposed to what impact I deliver as a result of this training that I'm going to take. For that to happen in a country like India, you have to take on an ecosystem-led approach, which is bringing the startups, bringing the investors, bringing the industry, bringing the academia and the research into your skilling programs, into your AI fluency programs. But even more importantly, I want the audience and all of us to take a step back and listen to this. My personal perspective, having been in the US for 30 plus years in the Valley, in the heart of innovation, is you need to institutionalize the mindset. There are three things to it, especially in an AI world where the technology is a runaway train. You need to institutionalize the curiosity of the mind, the critical thinking of the mind, and the creativity of the mind. The curiosity brings us what is the right kind of question that I want to ask. Okay, using AI to generate the right, for example, we take the LLMs, the prompts. It's all about prompt engineering we talk about, right? Depending on who is asking what kind of prompts, you get the right kind of a response, or the important response, or the sophistication of the response. The second is being able to define problems or analyze problems. And then the third thing is being able to produce creative solutions. All these three things, doesn't matter how fast technology moves, it cannot replace the human talent. And I think bringing these three, which I call the institutionalization of the mindset, as part of the training curriculum, first and foremost, and making it a foundational pillar for everything that we do, again, using that ecosystem approach of bringing in all the different institutions as part and parcel of your curriculum, as a part and parcel of the skilling, and making it like live data sets. We talked about how India has the most diverse data sets, and that's very important for us to recognize as a country to lead the AI race. It's one thing about amassing GPUs, but the twin engines that are going to determine the dominance in the AI race are who will mobilize talent at a population scale and who will mobilize data sets at a population scale. And India, on both those fronts, has a tremendous advantage. And I think with the kind of initiative that we are trying to do with ICOM, to bring in the muscle power and to bring in that ecosystem-led approach and to bring in that openness to build bridges to the rest of the ecosystems in the world, we could truly become the global AI innovation capital pretty soon.
Just taking that further, Vani, are you seeing enough innovative solutions coming out from the India market and the markets that you see, specifically around scaling? Like, is this a gap where there's also a lot of potential for startups to come in and play a larger role?
I think the opportunity, if we think about the next decade, 2 decades, let alone longer, because the internet opportunity now is at least 3 decades, right? And we are still mining that opportunity. So it's important when you have a generational shift in technology, which AI is, and it's probably, I would categorize it as bigger than a generational shift. This is going to change fundamental order of many things. Maybe how organizations work, maybe how society works, maybe how and what we value. I know we've been talking about how wealth may get concentrated, but we don't know that for sure because, history teaches us a lot. Land holding was where wealth was at one time, maybe oil holding. Then, if you look at top global companies today, they are technology companies, which would not have been conceivable a few decades back. You have to own assets to be able to be a wealthy company. So, I think there is a equalization over time that happens, and that's inevitable, that we know from, history. So, I think it's important we don't get too myopic and say, are we seeing enough opportunities? Is there enough innovation going on? Because the one thing that gets asked often is, why didn't India create a DeepSeek, or why didn't we create an open AI? And for that, we had to have been thinking about that 30 years back. And these things are not overnight. So the thing that's most important is for us to think about, this is going to be a long innovation race. Maybe in a race there are certain mileposts that you don't win. Maybe the large LLM models, maybe we win, we don't, although there will be another turn in technology again even within that, right? But it's important to think about how do you win the long race. And so for that, what are the investments we make today? And that could be a topic by itself and the panel by itself, but if I could just take one more minute, let's think about it, that the cyber-physical systems that we experience daily in every aspect of our life are all going to be intelligent. That is, the pace may change, what comes first, what comes next, which means that that's a large opportunity, and I heard Global South mentioned many times here, and what we have an opportunity from accessibility and affordability, and one part of that is the digital infrastructure that Jay talked about and others, but it's more than that, and that opportunity AI can equalize and empower, So I am an optimist. You couldn't do my job if you're not. So I don't look at it as are there enough innovations. I think there are enough ideas, enough entrepreneurs. There's also a responsibility to invest with patience, mentor, and play the long game.
Thank you, Ani. With that, let me also get audience questions. Anyone?
Hi everyone, so I'm Jeanette Ascona. I'm a research scholar at the New School. I have a new nonprofit, Kaya Network, which is focused on promoting interdisciplinary research using AI for social good. But I used to work at UN Women for 15 years, and so I'm going to take that hat temporarily right now and ask you a question that's related to what you were saying, the long run game, really investing in talent, investing in women, right? It was really nice coming in here this morning because you had a ladies line and you had a gentleman's line, and the ladies line was really, really short. I'm a data scientist by training, and I can tell you that machine learning is a passion of mine. But 12% of women worldwide are in the machine learning business. Less than a third of women are in AI, right, are AI experts. And so I'm really curious how you're thinking about that in terms of the work that you're doing. How are you empowering women to enter this field? Not as users, but as designers, as decision makers, as really people who are in the room making the decisions and really thinking about how we're going to use this technology to change the world. Thank you. Everyone.
A great question, and I'm going to request you and other men and women in the room, if you're really interested in this topic, we have a panel discussion tomorrow, which is AI for her, and we'll really have conversation with leading women leaders from the field of AI, where we are going to really drill down on this topic to say what all we need to do. To be truly inclusive, because we've heard about biases that exist, right, in every shape and form, and that gets carried forward to LLMs, etc. So it's so important to have women in machine learning, in AI, in leadership positions, in making decisions, and so on and so forth. But I am going to urge you to attend the session tomorrow. At the same time, since you referred to Jay and Vani and the optimism that they share, and Jay, specific to your call out, which is a very important one for all of us to focus on, that it doesn't stay in the hand of few, which includes the gender gap as well. I'm an AI optimist like Vani, and I wanted to say we sit in India with 900 million plus connected users who have access to internet. Today, large language models, and I'll speak for Chennai because I represent Google, is available in 9 languages with the roadmap to cross 22 languages in coming years. What does that mean? It means that a girl sitting in Siliguri, say 15, 16 years old, can ask questions in her local language, say Bengali, and can have access to anything she wants to know. So, understanding English, typing in English, being in a metro is not a barrier for her to know what she wants to know, because access to information and how you use the prompt and through voice, etc., is making it democratic and available to everyone. So that's my short answer. But if anyone else wants to weigh in.
Let's take more questions, right?
Hi, good morning. How will I have heard of the concept of real data? How will that overtake LLMs?
Hello guys, good morning, good afternoon and good evening everyone. So this student has a question.
My question is, how will
Relax. Open your phone, open your notes, and then ask. Be confident, okay? Everyone is supporting you. Don't be afraid, okay?
yeah, I have heard of concept of VLJPA, Vision Language Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture. It can replace the LLMs now. So how it can be?
Yeah, I can maybe take a stab at it.